So today I'll be discussing the first 10 pages of Henry Selick's Coraline. If you haven't read the script or seen the film, be warned, possible spoilers lie ahead. Coraline is a stop-motion film that was made back in 2009, and it was based off the novel by Neil Gaiman, which was written in 2002. The film is about an 11-year-old girl who moves into a new house in Ashland, Oregon, Miss Coraline Jones. There, she discovers this fascinating world behind a little door, a world where all her dreams come true. But something sinister lurks behind that colorful little world. Something tall, something dark, something with sewing needles for hands. Will Coraline survive her adventures into the other world? We'll have to find out. Okay, enough theatrics. In the first 10 pages of Coraline, we get a look at the property where the story will take place. The house, the garden, the old well, all of which will play a crucial role throughout the script. We meet Wyborn and the cat, and though the cat doesn't have much significance right away, he becomes a very important character about halfway through the script. Wyborn's introduction scene is actually quite interesting. We see him stalking Coraline on his bike for a while. Of course, we don't know it's him for most of the scene. And he ends up charging at Coraline from a hilltop looking like a psycho killer on a motorbike. The reason that I find this scene intriguing is because it actually mirrors how Wybie comes to Coraline's rescue later on page 109. Also in these 10 pages, we're introduced to the doll version of Coraline, first in the opening sequence, then again on page 10, as Coraline actually receives the doll that Wyborn found in his grandmother's trunk. There is a bit of stealth exposition in Coraline's first few pages. We find out on page 6 that Wyborn's grandma is very particular about who is allowed to live in Coraline's new home. Wybie says, "Surprised she let you move in," jerks his head towards the pink palace in the distance. "My grandma, she owns the pink palace. Won't rent to people with kids." And when Coraline asks what that means, Wybie says that he's not supposed to talk about it. Wybie's grandma keeps him on a pretty tight leash throughout the screenplay, and she never lets him into the pink palace. The only time he enters the building in the real world, he outright says that he's not supposed to be there. This gives off a sinister feeling about the house, especially when children are involved, and this makes us worry about Coraline's fate. And the doll, which I feel like I've mentioned 60,000 times already, is another bit of exposition that we get in the first 10 pages. The very first scene in the script involves the main antagonist, the beldam, making the Coraline doll, or the beldam's weird needle hands, since that's all we see. The doll-making scene lets the audience know that there's going to be a creepy, supernatural element to the film, and implies that the doll is going to show up later. In terms of theme, Coraline arguably has more than one. There's the theme of family, the home, bravery, alternate realities, and so on. But I'd say the strongest themes, and the theme that's present in the first 10 pages, has to be family. There's an interesting conversation between Coraline and her mom on page 9 and 10 that reveals the unhappy dynamic between them. Coraline says, "I almost fell down a well yesterday, Mom." "Uh-huh. I would have died." That's nice. This really reveals how Coraline feels ignored by her parents and is craving their attention. It also shows how Mel, Coraline's mom, has a short temper similar to her daughter, which often leads to a clash between them. There's a lot of what I found to be unnecessary dialogue in the beginning. The first lines belong to the moving crew that's unloading the Jones family belongings, not any major characters. I think it's all part of the setup of the film, but if the dialogue between the movers was cut out, I wouldn't miss it. The dialogue in the first 10 pages also introduces our main protagonist, Coraline, as well as her parents and Wyborn, who I suppose could be described as a friend/neighbor. A fair amount of the first 10 pages are Coraline exploring on her own, and we mostly see her personality through her actions. By the time she meets Wybie, we can tell she's a tough, no-nonsense girl who also has an imaginative side. Even within the first 10 pages, you can kind of guess what Coraline's fatal flaw, or hamartia, if I'm pronouncing that right, what it might be. She's short-tempered, she's frustrated with her life, and the lack of attention from her parents. The setup of Coraline's personality and her fatal flaw kind of lead into the script's reversal as well. On page 81, Coraline experiences a reversal in fortune. She escapes the other world only to find that her parents are gone and decides the only thing to do is to go back into the other world to rescue them. Coraline also undergoes a change in her personality right around this time. She realizes that she has to become selfless and overcome her fears in order to save her parents and the trapped ghost children. Finally, around this point in the script, Coraline stops thinking about herself and starts thinking about her friends and family. The first 10 pages present gray and colorless imagery. The dead garden, the rain, the mute colors add a sort of lifelessness to Coraline's surroundings. Coraline herself, she wears a bright yellow raincoat, which makes her easy to pick out and distinguish as the main character. All the other characters, Wybie, her parents, even the cat, they wear black, gray, or dulled colors. This is, of course, so the real world can be contrasted against the rich and brilliantly colored other world. While the real world seems to be stuck in a cold, dead, wintry state, the other world appears warm, alive, and inviting. It's interesting to note that the real world and the other world start to change the further the narrative progresses. The other world becomes darker and deader the more Coraline discovers about the Beldam's evil intentions. But in contrast, the real world, the garden becomes full of flowers by the end of the script, just as Coraline wanted from the very beginning. Now, in terms of the script's catalyst, I'm not sure if it's immediately present in the first 10 pages. The closest thing I would gather would be that the doll is the catalyst, and the doll is present right away. Think of it this way. The doll is a vital element of the script. If Coraline hadn't come across the doll, the whole narrative likely would not have happened. Although, let's face it, the Beldam would have found some other way to spy on Coraline and draw her into her creepy little bug world. One last fun fact. Coraline actually passes the Bechdel test with flying colors. The Bechdel test, created by Alison Bechdel, is a test that determines whether a film has developed female characters. There are 3 crucial criteria to this test. 1, there has to be more than one female character, preferably a leading female, not just a sidekick or a minor character. 2, the female characters have to talk to each other. And 3, they have to talk to each other about something other than a man. Coraline passes this test because there are 3 significant female characters, Coraline, Mel, and the Beldam. While Mel and the Beldam never speak to each other, they both speak to Coraline at one point or another, and they very rarely mention a man. Both mothers ask Coraline to fetch her father, but that's about it. I think it's very encouraging to see such progressive character development in this script. So there you have it. This has been my presentation on the first 10 pages of Coraline. Thanks for watching!